Hi, friends. I was just listening to a video and I didn't finish it, but the subject was the direction of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And one of the things that came out was many people in the Seventh-day Adventist Church don't believe in the spirit of prophecy anymore, the writings of Ellen G. White. And I just want to tell you what the writings have done in my life. One of the things that really blessed me were the writings of Ellen G. White when I was a child. Not to say that it's still not effective, but it painted a picture of what I wanted my life to be like. It gave a foundation for a philosophy of family, of diet, of dress, of ministry, and it blessed me beyond words. I mean, it blessed me so much that I can't even entertain the thought that it was not inspired writings. I might not be able to argue with you on particular quotes that you find that are contradictory of the Bible, or some of the history and what she believed at this point and then later changed, and I may not be able to do that, but I can tell you what it's done for my life. So I am 63 years old and I'm feeling really healthy and strong. One of the reasons for that is the book Counsels on Diets and Foods, and it's a compilation of her writings, and it talks about diet, when to eat, what to eat, how to eat, and it talks about the relationship between diet and our relationship with Christ. So once those two were together, then it wasn't optional for me to take care of my body temple. So that really helped me, prevented me from snacking, from eating harmful items. She talks about bad combinations, milk and sugar. She talks about the need to get rid of animal products as we get closer to the end of time because of the diseases that are going to be manifested in the animal kingdom. She talks about, being able to prepare a healthy, delicious meal is equivalent to 10 talents. And not eating when rushed or feeling upset, it just goes into so much. It helped me with nursing my children. What's a very prominent thing that people do is they breastfeed on demand, and it wears the mother out. It doesn't give her a structured life. She's at the beck and call of her infant. And it helped me with regularity, feeding my child at regular times, and that my milk came in right on time. I was able to go somewhere and come back and know it was a meal time. The baby wasn't in control, I was. And Ellen G. White says in her writings, that the mother's word is law. So that helped me with child rearing, making sure that a daughter can use a hammer and a saw, and making sure that a man can sew. She talks about the importance of teaching a trade to your children. She talks about education and what's important, and not that we look to see if science proves certain things, but it's the Bible first, and science is in harmony with the Bible. So I homeschooled my children until college, and they all graduated from Adventist college. So it just directed my life. She talks about furnishing a home. She talks about your will. There's so much in her writings, and there's no way someone with a third grade education could come up with that on their own. It's inspired. Like I said, there are many people who go up against Ellen G. White, and they write publications on showing where she contradicts herself or contradicts the Bible or says something that doesn't happen. And I don't have any comment on those, and I don't feel I have to. But I know that the writings were so good, and I feel that if we can expose our children to it, then it helps direct their life. I don't always eat properly, but in my mind, I don't snack. It's a lifelong habit, and she talks about 2 meals a day better being better than 3. And I have 2 meals a day. So even if I do overeat or splurge a little bit, how much weight can I gain on 2 meals a day? So that has helped me to manage my weight. It's helped me. The importance of the 8 laws of health daily. I mean, the government says that we should exercise 3 times a week, 150 hours every day. The government doesn't tell you to brush your teeth 3 times a week, right? But the Spirit of Prophecy talks about these are done every day. And even though on the Sabbath, I don't exercise the same way, I'm not going to go to a gym or lift weights, but I'm going to get out and exercise after fellowship dinner or after I eat. So, the importance of going to bed before the hours before midnight are double. It's just the writings are where the average person would not know the information without those writings. And the thing that I love is that, the chance of someone being able to go to Harvard or to be in a scholarly environment, they may not have that opportunity. But her writings is the best writings on the planet outside of the Bible. The Bible's number 1, but her writings, and they meet the needs of all classes and of all people. And there's very little writings that could do that. I mean, there are people who have not sought higher education, and we can throw some names out there and they wouldn't know. They don't understand. I mean, I went to college a long time ago, so if I threw those names out, you may not know them, like Hemingway and Poe and, the different people that we studied, the different historians. And, you throw those names out and you're saying, okay, I learned this in college, and there are people, that don't get exposure to that. But her writings are, I don't want to say it's like going to Harvard because it's so much greater than that, but I'm saying it gives you exposure to advanced information and education that you normally wouldn't get. The average person would not get that. And it's better than any other information you can get because it deals with life. You know what I mean? So whether I am poor or middle class or rich or uneducated or educated or blue collar or white collar, whatever it is that you are, whatever state you find yourself in, her writings will address your needs. And there is very few writings that do that. I mean, I've taken classes where I had to drop them. I'm like, oh, this is beyond my ability to understand. It just was at such a high level, it was just difficult. But her writings aren't like that. You read them and a child can understand them. And they're educational and they help you to make it in this life. They help you to navigate your way through this life. And I'm fortunate that, I can say, that I have been an Adventist all of my life. And the blessings, I'm 63. So, people like to do long-term studies and compare and say, well, you went this way and this one went that way, and we want to see what happens. So I can tell you that it blessed my life, and I feel really bad for people who shun her writings. I mean, it's like somebody giving you gold or money and you don't want it. They say, I'll clear your debt, and you say no. I mean, the benefit is something I can't even put in words. I can't even articulate what the writings did. I have a classmate who has a nicotine patch on. She's not a smoker, but she read that nicotine, has some benefits. And here she is, a healthy young person, saturating her body with nicotine. Well, see, I already know that. I don't have to read that because I know that these substances aren't good. I know that nicotine isn't good. I'm not going to be fooled by diets where they say have vinegar every day and it'll cure your diabetes. The Spirit of Prophecy says vinegar is an irritant and we shouldn't have it. I'm not going to have it. So I don't need to have something come out in Time magazine or People magazine or something telling me try apple cider vinegar. I'm not going to do it because these things were instilled in me. Spices were instilled in me that they encourage the lower passions, and I'm trying to deal with them myself. I want to squash them, keep them under control. So all I need is to have black pepper or cinnamon or nutmeg or something that stimulates it and makes it harder for me to obey. And see, these are things that I was taught as a child. I was taught this as a child. So it really makes a difference because it was instilled in me. So when these different diets come out, like, paleo based on evolution, I don't listen. Or keto, no carbs, high protein, high fat, a balanced plant-based diet. You just can't go wrong. When you read about what she says on medications, how we shouldn't use them. Does it mean never? I mean, you've got to be in contact with God. It doesn't mean never, but she says the way they are normally used, we're not to use them that way. So I'm not going to pop an aspirin or Tylenol or Motrin or do it flippantly. You know what I mean? I'm going to be careful because I know that all drugs have the potential of side effects. So I've got to weigh the risk versus benefit. I'm not going to make it my first line of treatment. Have I gone to the dentist and had Novocaine for pain? Yes. Have I had an infection and taken an antibiotic? Yes. But try natural first. Have respect for God and nature. This is what I've learned. And that brings me to another point. Her books talk about what we can learn from nature. That's God's book to teach you. But the world will have you focused on man-made things, buildings. A lot of us forget that food comes from God. Who makes that seed grow when we plant the seed and we plant an apple seed and get an apple tree or a peach tree or grapevine or strawberries or squash? Who's doing that? It's not Publix or Vaughn's or Safeway, right? It's God. He provides the soil, the water, the sunshine, the exercise. Or what it needs. I don't mean exercise, but the oxygen. God provides. And so don't run from the spirit of prophecy. Don't do it. It's the devil. There's no way it would hurt you if you read it and ask for the Holy Spirit. Anything you read, including the Bible, without the Holy Spirit can have a negative effect because you might misinterpret something. And the beginning of knowledge is fear of God. That means that I'm going to respect His way. I'm going to fear deviating from God or living a life without God. I'm going to fear that. The fool says in his heart there's no God. So the beginning of knowledge is start with God. All right, what did God tell me to eat? And it's just blessings after blessings. I used to, Ellen G. White talks about the importance of living in the country, and I don't like the country. I'm like, Lord, I like houses around, people around. I don't want to be where there's one house and then a mile later there's another, and then I come out my house, there's a frog or a snake, or the other day that armadillo. I don't like that. But you know what I thought? I said, there's less crime in the country. And I just was trying to figure out why. And I said, you know what? The criminals feel like you. They're not comfortable in the country. They're not comfortable in the dark. They're not comfortable without lights. They're not comfortable with not knowing what you have behind those doors. So there's less crime because the criminals don't feel comfortable in the country either. And that's why there's more crimes in the city. So I said, see, there you go. And as I have grown as a Christian, and as I have read the writings of the Spirit of Prophecy along with the Bible, with the aid of the Holy Spirit, I dress more modestly. So I'm less likely to be a victim of theft and robbery. I'm not flaunting designer clothes, jewelry, expensive jewelry. I don't have cleavage. I don't show my rear. I don't have tight clothes. So I'm not inciting, getting men excited. I mean, it's ridiculous for women to not, unless they want that. You're a Christian woman and you're showing your breast. You're wearing clothes that outline your behind. I mean, a man loves that. That is very attractive to him. He was designed for that. So save it for your man. Not every Tom, Dick, and Harry needs to see that and be struggling to prevent getting aroused. So I don't do that, thank God. And it helps. It cuts down on crimes. It cuts down on jealousy. It cuts down on, being bothered. Oh, I'm in Kentucky, yay. I'm not bothered. I don't have women looking me up and down and, where'd she get that from? And I don't have that from the women. The men see that I'm wearing a skirt or a dress or baggy pants or covering myself, and they don't, woo-hoo, I don't get that. And I've been married, 37 years, and I have a loving husband, and I have all of the intimacy that anyone on the planet could ever want. And I don't do all of that. I don't wear lipstick. I don't spend my money on that. I save so much money, no lipstick and eyeshadow and long fingernails. I don't need it. So the Spirit of Prophecy did that for me. And it's really, really a blessing for me. The dress message is a blessing. The health message, the food message. It's a blessing. I mean, I just am flabbergasted that people wouldn't wouldn't allow themselves to benefit, but they would read a good book. So if you're on the fence about whether or not Ellen G. White is a inspired prophetess, then read her writings. It will change your life like it did mine. All right, guys. Bye.